In a bold and unexpected geopolitical shift, Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré has rewritten the rules of African aid and independence by turning the continent from a dependent recipient into a self-sustaining supplier. The moment that sent shockwaves from Washington to Paris came during the 2025 Pan-African Development Summit in Addis Ababa, where Traoré unveiled the Sahel Grain Initiative (SGI), a regional agricultural alliance designed to eliminate Africa's reliance on foreign food aid, starting with rice. The announcement was met with thunderous applause from African leaders and stunned silence from international observers. For decades, USAID has symbolized American soft power on the continent. But in a twist of fate, Traoré's plan positioned Burkina Faso, and a newly united Sahel, as the new food backbone of sub-Saharan Africa. From coup leader to agricultural commander, when Ibrahim Traoré took power in 2022, few outside Burkina Faso expected his administration to last. The youngest president in Africa at the time, Traoré faced an insurgency, regional instability, and deep food insecurity. But behind closed doors, he was already laying plans for agricultural self-sufficiency. He began by consolidating thousands of hectares of idle land into state-run agricultural cooperatives, backed by local labor, traditional farming techniques, and modern irrigation systems. In a speech in 2024, he proclaimed, "The era of begging for bags of rice is over. If we can defend our land with guns, we can feed our people with grain." What followed was a miracle of mobilization. With the help of engineers from Mali, irrigation experts from Sudan, and seed researchers from Tanzania, Burkina Faso saw a 400% increase in rice yields over 2 planting seasons. By mid-2025, the country was exporting rice to neighbors like Niger, Chad, and Guinea. The shock in Washington. At a press conference shortly after the Addis summit, a visibly surprised Donald Trump, recently re-elected amid nationalist fervor, was asked to comment on Traoré's rise as a food sovereign. Trump's response was blunt. First, they said Africa was starving. Now they're saying Africa doesn't need America? Let's see how long that lasts. But intelligence briefings told another story. USAID reports indicated that several East and West African nations had declined American food shipments in favor of direct trade with Burkina Faso. Not only was the SGI rice cheaper, it was politically cleaner, unattached to donor conditions, ideological strings, or dollar dependencies. By mid-June 2025, Nigeria, the continent's largest economy, signed a memorandum with Burkina Faso and Mali to purchase 1 million metric tons of Sahel-grown rice annually. It marked the first time since the 1980s that Africa's most populous nation had opted out of U.S. food support. A regional vision takes shape. Traoré's success was not limited to Burkina Faso. His diplomatic charm and revolutionary rhetoric inspired a new regional pact. Mali, Niger, Guinea, and even parts of Senegal joined the Sahel Grain Initiative, forming a cooperative trade bloc that prioritized local production, inter-African trade, and agricultural autonomy. The bloc's motto? Feed ourselves first. Each country brought something to the table. Mali's waterways, Niger's open plains, Guinea's labor force. Together, they created a food surplus powerful enough to challenge the decades-long narrative that Africa must rely on foreign aid to survive. With that surplus, Traoré did something few leaders have dared. He offered rice as aid to famine-stricken regions in South Sudan, Somalia, and even Gaza. For the first time in modern history, Africa was not receiving aid, it was giving it. USAID fades, Traoré shines. The transformation sparked debate in the halls of Washington. A classified State Department memo leaked in July 2025 described Traoré as the most influential disruptor of American soft power in Africa since Gaddafi. But unlike Gaddafi, Traoré wasn't throwing money into foreign insurgencies or grand global visions. He was simply feeding people. His approach proved hard to demonize. He wasn't asking for handouts. He was building resilience, and his popularity surged, not just in Burkina Faso, but across the continent. Street murals from Nairobi to Lagos bore his image. Youth movements began calling him the African provider. A viral TikTok remix of one of his speeches amassed over 50 million views. At a public rally in Ouagadougou, Traoré addressed a crowd of 80,000. They gave us aid like breadcrumbs to keep us crawling. We now give food like brothers to help others stand. Tensions rise with the West. Predictably, not everyone was pleased. French corporations tied to West African rice imports saw their stocks plummet. U.S. agribusinesses lobbied Congress to investigate unfair trade practices by the SGI. A proposal was floated in Washington to reallocate aid budgets toward strategic deterrence in Africa. But Traoré didn't flinch. In a rare interview with Le Monde Afrique, he said, "We are not at war with the West. We are at war with dependency. If they feel threatened, they must ask themselves why." What's next? Analysts are already calling Traoré's rise Africa's agricultural revolution. His administration is now exploring Pan-African wheat production, livestock syndicates, and fertilizer factories, industries long controlled by Western interests. The SGI has plans to expand into East Africa, with Tanzania, Uganda, and Ethiopia expressing interest in observer status. Meanwhile, USAID's footprint in West Africa is shrinking. Quietly, offices in Bamako and Niamey have scaled back operations. Local NGOs report that U.S.-funded food programs have been replaced by regional alternatives, many bearing the Sahel grain logo, a lion's head inside a stalk of rice. A legacy in the making. What makes Traoré unique is not just that he feeds his people, but that he understands the symbolism of food as power. To replace foreign rice with local rice is more than economics. It is sovereignty on a plate. As his administration prepares to host the first-ever Pan-African Food Independence Expo in Ouagadougou, one thing is clear. Africa is watching Traoré. And for the first time in a long time, the world is watching Africa not because of a crisis, but because of a solution.